I'm recording this bonus video because I know how intimidating and challenging writing a query letter can be. So I'm designating this video to that process alone. I'm going to talk about how to write it, what should be included, and give some fun examples along the way. So let's get started. First, what is a query letter? The easiest way to think about a query letter is like a pitch. You've got the idea and you need to do whatever you can to try and convince the reader of your letter that it's worth investing in. Easier said than done though. You know how when you're looking for something to watch on Netflix, you kind of hover over a clip and it plays just a few seconds? How many of us actually sit through until the end of that very short segment? I'm sure it's not a lot. And that shows how limited our attention span is and how crucial it is to make every word count in this letter. If you thought your book was a challenge, some might say the query letter itself is a bigger mountain to climb. But don't worry, we're gonna figure out the winning recipe together. Let's talk about the ingredients. Your query letter should sit at about 3 paragraphs, not more than 300 words, and should be very concise and to the point. There are some standard formatting things to consider, like using a font that is easily readable and that isn't too unique or different. You really want to stick to the status quo here. Let's talk about what goes into each of those 3 paragraphs. First, start with a greeting. Dear Miss X. Now, your first paragraph is your hook. It's what's going to determine whether the reader of your letter will keep reading. So how do you make the first paragraph of a query letter hooky? You want to get straight to the point. First, explain what you're doing. Say something as straightforward as, I'm seeking representation for, and this is where you'll put in the name of your book, the genre, and the word count. So let's say you've written a book about an AI bot who's fallen in love with a baker in Paris. Your first line could say something like, Dear Miss X, I'm currently seeking representation for my sci-fi romance novel, The Bot and the Baker. Easy. Next, you want to prove why you've reached out to this agent specifically. You can say something like, because of your track record in romance and science fiction publishing, I felt like you were the perfect person to reach out to. Another thing you could do here is give a hypothetical situation to draw your reader in. So here's an example. Dear Miss X, part of being human is our capacity for love. But what happens when you begin to fall in love with someone who looks human and acts human and feels human, but isn't? Does that make our love any less true? Let's talk about what I did there. I made you think. I put you in a situation that is challenging, confusing, and pretty intriguing. And don't you just want to know a little bit more about what I'm talking about? That's a hook. Your second paragraph should summarize your book. You don't want to give away the whole plot, but talk about some major points that, again, keep the intrigue going. You're basically making your case why your book is worth reading, worth representing, and worth buying. You can introduce some main characters, what happens to them, and like I said, just keep them wanting more. Let's go back to my bot and the baker example. I'm gonna read this one. The year is 2064. Humans and AI live segregated lives so as to protect each species. Andrew, an advanced AI, gets separated from his community in rural France and finds himself on a train to Paris. He knows that if he gets caught among humans, his fate will be worse than death. So he tries to blend in, and soon he meets Christine, the most beautiful human with bright green eyes and delicate hands. He visits her at the bakery and a romance begins to bloom. But Christine doesn't know Andrew's secret. What will happen when she finds out? This is a work in progress, and to be clear, I've never written a book about robots or bakers. But it's just giving you an idea of how to get your reader to keep reading. Once you've got your summary, you can end with a really short paragraph. This can be a final sentence or two about your writing qualifications, anything you've had published previously, or any particular education that's relevant. If you can't think of anything to add there, I would just end with something simple like, thank you for considering my work. And there's your letter. But remember, this should be draft 1. Whatever you've come up with should go through a number of iterations. And I don't just mean iterations in your own head. I want you to take the letter that you've come up with and read it to your parents, read it to your coworkers, read it to your dog walker, and ask them questions. You can ask things like, would you read this book? Are you curious to know what happens? Or what fell flat for you here? That'll help you refine your writing, tighten it up, and make sure that your reader will be interested the whole way through. Once you're happy with your query letter, now it's time to begin compiling a list of relevant agents. I talk about that in the next video.